This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Ahoy hoy, it's Lydia here from the Simpsons Theory. You know what, I just think Marge is neat. She's kind, loving, and adorably dorky. And I think it's just about time I made a video on her entire life.
Now it's Marge's time to shine.
Although she may not be as impulsive as Homer or as rebellious as Bart, she's had her fair share of wild adventures too. Let's not forget she's been a badass cop, a champion bodybuilder, and has even become mayor of Springfield. So today we'll start from her as a little blue-haired cutie all the way to her old age, and unfortunately her eventual death too. So let's get straight into it, as this is the complete timeline of Marge Simpson. But first, please be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Simpsons content and let me know whose timeline you'd like to see next. The early life of Marge Bouvier. Marjorie Bouvier is the youngest daughter of Jacqueline and Clancy Bouvier. Her sisters, twins Patty and Selma, are about 4 or 5 years older than her. And like many other older siblings, they would tease her relentlessly, especially on her first day of school.
And there's only one big toilet, and they make you all go at the same time.
And as you'd expect from this, Marge wasn't always a happy child, but her mother encouraged her to smile even when she didn't feel like it. And this is something she would ask her own daughter to do in later life, before she realised what horrible advice it was. And eventually she would tell Lisa it's okay to be sad.
From now on, let me do the smiling for both of us.
I think that the way in which Marge was raised may reflect on how much of a people pleaser she sometimes appears around other mums in Springfield. From simply wanting to fit in season 7 scenes from the class struggle in Springfield, to the time she conceals her true emotions and amped up rage, causing at times explosive outbursts. But do not worry, we do see glimpses of her happy childhood too in archival footage of her holidaying in Barnacle Bay. It's in these clips we can see how truly of a pure, happy and bright soul she is compared to her older sisters. And as well as her mum, we are also exposed to Marge's underlying daddy issues as well. Later on, when suffering a panic attack on a plane, it reveals a deep-rooted fear of flying. And to get to the bottom of this phobia, she attends therapy where they unearth a forgotten memory. When she was a child, she believed her father was a pilot and was so proud of him for it, excitedly wanting to see him at work. And one day she does. She runs into a plane but discovers that he's a flight attendant instead.
Don't look at me!
But her therapist reassures her and says that male flight attendants are more and more common each day, and that her father was a pioneer in their profession, and this reassures Marge and cures her fear of flying. And you know what, today I'm going to reveal that I was a cabin crew member for 3 years, and I can tell you, it's not just pushing a trolley around and serving drinks to rich people. With arduous weeks of training involving firefighting, treating injuries, death, crisis control, involving evacuating aircrafts of people in water, I guess you can say that we are heroes too.
Let's not go nuts.
Oh yeah, and Marge and her mother were chased and almost gone down by a plane, so I guess that could have contributed to the plane phobia too, but yeah, who knows. And unfortunately, we don't know much else about Clancy Bouvier, as he isn't explored very well throughout the show. Aged 8, meeting her homie. Although Homer and Marge thought they first met in high school, they actually met a few years earlier while at camp. Marge is sent to Campland a man to learn etiquette and how to behave like a proper young lady, and little Marge is a natural at walking with her legs together. Wow, look at those skills. After eating her dinner in the cafeteria, she drops her tray down the chute, only to realise she dropped her retainer down with it. But a mysterious stranger hands it back to her, calling himself Elvis, sparking interest and a plan to meet that very night. While getting ready for her date, she irons her hair to straighten it, but she does it for a bit too long.
I guess I'm going to have to be a brunette tonight.
Later on, she meets Elvis wearing an eye patch, and the two hit it off and they share their very first kiss, making plans to meet that next day too. But Elvis never shows up and it breaks her heart, and it isn't until years later they both discover that they were each other's first love. And they even save two halves of a stone-shaped heart. This just goes to show that Homer and Marge were destined to be together. Before we continue, I'd like to take a moment to say a big thank you to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an amazing all-in-one platform that makes it even easier than ever to build your own website. I created mine within a day and I had so much fun doing it. Granted, it's no Mr. X, but I'm pretty happy with it. I can post all of my videos on there and adapt my scripts into online articles. If you want to check it out, the link is in the description below. There's so many ways you could customize it as well, just to your taste. There's so many templates for you to play with. Honestly, I really recommend it. Head over to Squarespace for a free trial today and see if it's a good fit for you. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Simpsons Theory to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. The link is in the description below. High school and prom night. Marge was quite the artist and would often paint Ringo Starr, but her small-minded teacher discouraged her from painting, throwing works in the trash. So when she got home, she sent the portrait to the only person whose opinion she could trust and respected. But when she never received a reply, she stopped painting for years, until much later when Lisa encouraged her mother to take it up again. And after winning first place at an art exhibition, Burns commissions her to paint his portrait. She accepts but almost quits due to Burns' cruel behaviour and high demands. But she has a change of heart when she receives a belated response from the Beatles star.
I hung it on me wall. You're quite an artist.
This lights a fire and gives Marge a huge confidence boost, pushing her to go with her natural instinct and paint Burns' inner beauty by painting him in the buff. Later on, Homer and Marge would meet again years after the camp in high school, and the two of them ran in very different social circles. Much like her future daughter, Marge was quite the activist, orchestrating a feminist rally and encouraged everyone to burn their bras. This determination to fight for the better cause translates into her adult years in arguing against Itchy and Scratchy's violence, La Maison Derrière, so much so that she even gets a name for herself in the town meetings, much to many groans and moans. But anyway, in high school, her feminist activism earned her a period of detention. And so this is where Homer sees Marge for the first time and is instantly smitten with the blue-haired beauty, earning himself 6 days of detention by introducing himself to her.
I'm Homer.
3 days,
Jay.
4 days,
Simpson.
5 days,
It was worth it.
6 days.
In order to pursue her further, Homer attends her debates and later asks her to tutor him in French. In doing so, they end up getting along really well, but soon she discovers that it's all a ruse to get close to her, and she is infuriated.
Homer J. Simpson, I hate you!
She ends up going to the prom with Artie Ziff and crowned prom king and queen, but after the party, Ziff gets a bit too handsy, tearing at her dress and earns a well-deserved slap. On the way home, she notices a defeated Homer walking in the road, so she then goes back to her car and picks him up. It's here that she admits that she should have gone to prom with him, and Homer in turn admits that once they pull over, he'll never be able to let her go.
And I never have.
Marge and Homer's marriage is the bedrock of the entire show, and although they will continue to have many fights throughout the years, they are, through it all, absolute soulmates. It just seems that they just get each other. Marge sees Homer through all of his flaws and understands that at the end of the day, the way he acts is out of naivety rather than maliciousness, similarly to how he set up the French tutor session. And I always think it's so nice to see how hard Homer fights for Marge when things don't go the way they planned. Marge goes to college. Marge and Homer have moved into their first apartment together and she finds out she has been accepted into Springfield University, but she is dismayed to learn that she just can't afford it. But ever the supportive boyfriend, Homer goes to work for his dad's laser tag business so she can afford her tuition. But unfortunately for him, on her very first day, she meets a handsome professor named Stefan August. And she quickly falls for the pompous professor, ditching poor Homie. But dating a pretentious teacher isn't as great as she first thought, as he constantly speaks down to her and acts really superior, so she dumps him.
Oh, evolve yourself, Professor Jerk.
So she runs back to Homer and asks him to take her back.
I got so caught up in the world of college that I forgot how important your love was.
Now I know, this isn't the most flattering portrayal of Marge, but I put this down to her being young and inexperienced. It's easy to think that the grass is greener on the other side and falling for a fantasy when you already have something pretty great right in front of you. But I think that's just the beauty of The Simpsons. They aren't perfect people, they're flawed, they've got their problems, and that's just what makes them so relatable. Age 20, Homer and Marge forever. While on a bike ride, Homer falls and damages the bike, and who drives by and offers them a lift? A good old Samaritano named Ned Flanders.
Marge, I love this guy.
Who is on his honeymoon with Maud Flanders. They take them to a place called Cozy Cabins, and Ned tries all he can to ensure the unwed Marge and Homer don't get up to any hanky-panky. The next day, Homer asks Ned for some relationship advice.
Why don't you take Marge for a walk, open your heart, and see what pours out?
Homer says that he knows they will get married one day, and to prove it, he carves their initials into a tree. Age 26, marriage. Young and child-free, Marge and Homer are living their best life, going to the movies and having lovely romantic dinners. Marge is working as a journalist, which suits her previous activist ambitions, and all seems to be right with the world.
This is the happiest I've ever been in my life.
Until 1 year later, a night in a mini windmill changes everything. After a steamy night playing mini golf, Homer gets a hole-in-one, and so Marge gets pregnant.
So you've ruined your life.
So Homer asks Marge to marry him. But with no money to their name, they get married at a seedy wedding chapel. And they don't have the greatest honeymoon either, spending it at a truck stop and sleeping on the living room couch at Marge's family's house. After failing to secure a job, Homer feels like a failure. Feeling unworthy of a family, he takes off and promises to send every cent he earns to Marge. A pregnant Marge is absolutely devastated, but it's Selma of all people who tells her where Homer is. And so Marge drives to Gulp and Blow and asks for her homie back.
My husband by my side.
You want fries with that?
And it's pretty funny that this behaviour is mirrored throughout the show through various episodes, where Homer really does try his very best, with many times failing and feeling inadequate in the process. But Marge can always see his good intentions and loves him for who he is. Age 27, working mum. Marge is juggling the responsibilities of raising a 1-year-old whilst working as a journalist under a hot-headed editor. While covering an art exhibition, Homer asks Marge to take care of Bart, who then proceeds to cause havoc at the gallery. Marge is fired from her job and so realises that they have a problem child, turning to Reverend Lovejoy for advice. He shows them an educational video that states the cure for misbehaving children is to give them a sibling.
That's it, homie. That's the answer. We're having another child.
Needing a bigger home to house their growing family, Abe Simpson funds their move to Evergreen Terrace, just in time for Lisa Simpson to be born. Age 37, present day. Marge now has 3 children, Bart, Lisa and Maggie. She is a kind, loving and supportive mother and has always reminded me of my own mum, especially when she says things like,
An alligator with sunglasses? Now I've seen everything.
As she's raising 3 children, and let's face it, one more being Homer, her primary role is a homemaker. But she has on the odd occasion dreamt of more. and so explored a range of jobs from owning a bakery, pretzel making, gym owning, being a carpenter, and also taught at Springfield Elementary, which naturally embarrassed Bart.
It's me, Mom. Hi. Hey. Hello.
But she also had some pretty dangerous occupations too. One day, Marge caught Snake swindling money, chasing him down and thwacked him with a trash lid. The thrill of the chase encouraged her to join the police force, and as you can expect from Springfield's finest, they didn't take her too seriously.
Welcome aboard.
Proving them wrong, she was a damn fine police officer who took her role very seriously. She even arrested her obnoxious husband for stealing a hat, but she would also save him later on when he was held hostage by a pant bootlegger Herman. She would take him out by using a trapdoor in the treehouse. Ever the one for fighting for the good side, she was disappointed with the corruption of the police force and so quits, unwilling to compromise her integrity. This need to do good usually gets in the way of her career ambitions. But do not fear, her moral compass did make her the perfect candidate for mayor. Due to another blunder by Mayor Quimby, the old monorail tears through Springfield, causing destruction and costing thousands in damages. And it's Marge Simpson who stands up to the corrupt politician. But creepy Mayor Quimby brushes her off with some sexist remarks.
Don't you worry your pretty little head about it.
With some encouragement from her family, she decides to run for mayor. With promises of extinguishing the tar yard that's been burning for over 30 years, she wins the election but soon learns that making change isn't so easy. When the public turn on her, she uses her husband as a scapegoat, making fun of him at events, which causes her approval rating to go up. Despite encouragement from her team, Marge feels uneasy about continuing to tease her husband for the sake of her job, and instead expresses just how wonderful he is.
Everyone, look inside yourself and find your Homer Simpson.
8 years later, Marge and Homer would visit the Marge Simpson Mayoral Library. They tour the exhibition that is dedicated to her time in office, and we learn that she makes the first contact with aliens, and we discover that she was impeached. If all of that wasn't impressive enough, she also becomes an Olympic medalist. Marge and Homer work together to win the gold for the United States in ice curling. Not bad for someone who people simply brush off for being a housewife. Age 52, Lisa's wedding. A grown-up Lisa is getting married and her mum is ecstatic. Lisa asks her mother to promise that Homer will not ruin the wedding, so Marge puts a restraining order on Homer so he legally can't make any wedding decisions.
Well, these seem to be in order. I'll be up back in the hammock.
Now throughout the show, Marge and Lisa's relationship has always been quite strong, from her encouraging Lisa to express her feelings to the morning of her wedding, where Marge cuts off a piece of her hair so Lisa will have something blue, and makes her feel a bit better for wearing white after Millhouse.
Oh, Millhouse doesn't count.
As it turns out, Lisa doesn't go through with the wedding, but we all know that Marge, ever the supportive mother, would take care of her. While on the subject of Lisa, let's briefly touch on this season 32 episode, Mother and Child Reunion. In this flash forward episode, Lisa decides not to go to college, causing a rift between her and Marge. But this episode pretty much contradicts many of the future themed episodes, so I won't go into too much detail here. If you want to hear more about that, then please check out the Lisa Simpson timeline. Age 67, being a grandmother. The three Simpsons kids have flown the nest and have started their own families. Bart is a divorcee with 2 kids, Lisa is married to Millhouse and has a daughter, and Maggie is pregnant. But it isn't all happy families for the holidays, as her kids are struggling with parenthood. Marge tries to offer Lisa advice and it is quickly brushed off.
I am trying to deal with my disrespectful daughter, but you are too clueless to understand what that's like.
Later on, Bart reminds Lisa that their mom did a great job with her, so she shouldn't be so quick to dismiss Marge's advice. Lisa takes this to heart and wakes up her mother to apologize. Age 68, Days of Future. In the Homer timeline, we talked about his many deaths. It turns out that Frank was able to clone him and bring him back from the dead time and time again. But now in her twilight years, Marge is finally at the end of her rope when Homer dies for the 100th time, and Frank has finally run out of clones, so Homer is reduced to living inside a television. She kicks his virtual ass out to live with Bart, but much like the magnets that are probably lodged in the TV set, they are always pulled back together again. As Marge explains to her children,
Is when you make a decision that comes from your heart, you stick with it.
in the end, Homer is upgraded to a shiny new robot body, and the two are back together once again.
After 35 years of marriage, we've finally gotten it right.
Age 70, President Lisa. Lisa is now the President of the United States, and Homer and Marge now live with her in the White House. Even though they probably have dozens of servants, Marge is still doing the laundry.
Be nice to your brother, Lisa.
When she's not scrubbing Homer's pants, she's looking after Maggie Jr., presumably while Maggie the rock star is touring the world with her band. This seems to suit Marge's character of her care and nurturing for her family, even in later life. Homer, on the other hand, is busy searching for Lincoln's buried treasure, and ever the dutiful wife, she helps him find the chest, but they discover that the treasure is only a handwritten letter about how the gold can be found in the heart of every freedom-loving American.
That lying, rail-splitting, theater-going freak!
Aged 84, the death of Marge Simpson, or Marge Flanders. As seen at the end of the episode Flanders' Ladder, Marge is now married to Ned Flanders, presumably after the last of Homer's many clones have gone or his android body has been shut off. This pairing does make sense, and I totally ship them if Homer wasn't around. She always had a flirty relationship with her hunky neighborino, using him as the inspiration as the muscular hero in her novel. And the two of them almost got it on when they served each other cream and strawberries. Very steamy. But cutting back to Flanders' Ladder, Marge passes away after sipping tea and dies at the age of 84. Her photo is then added to the wall of Flanders' many deceased wives. A bit suspicious, but dunno. And so that ends the complete Marge Simpson timeline. And finally, I like to dedicate this video to my Flying Hellfish members. If you want to join the Hellfish Club, then check out the link in the description below. Over there, I release content early from Screen Portal and the Simpsons Theory. I send out personal letters, and you receive a vinyl Hellfish member sticker when you join. So guys, this is for you. We have Timothy, who else but Zane, Liam, Charlie, Sean, Andre, Stefan, Vincent, Robert, Ashley, Kevin, Glenford, Devin, Gadrak, Stephen, Edward, Anthony, Nicola, Nerdcentric, Jeffrey, Dominic, Cody, Aaron, Jakku Star, GameBoss49, Chaz, Jeff, Gil, Shadu, Murray, Paul, Oliver, Henry, Frank, Lucas, Emily, Omar, Cruise Life Eric, Rayleigh, Thomas88, Dave, and Samantha Rose.